Did you know that millions of people were supposed to live in this capital city, but it's currently empty? And that there's a stadium in the middle of the Amazon rainforest left completely useless? These are 7 of the most useless megaprojects in the world. Number 7. The Arena da Amazonia. In 2014, Brazil hosted the Football World Cup. To make this happen, they had to build a total of 12 brand new football stadiums and also renovate some older ones. One of these football stadiums was the Arena da Amazonia, located in Manaus. This arena took a total of 4 years to build, and the cost was an estimate of $250 million. Now here's where it gets interesting. The location of the stadium was in the middle of the Amazon rainforest, which meant that building it wasn't going to be an easy task. Although Manaus is Brazil's 7th largest city, moving large amounts of goods to this location was very difficult. A lot of the materials used for the stadium were being shipped from Portugal, and that journey takes about 3 weeks. This ramped up the costs of the mega project very quickly, but this is only where the problems begin for the arena. After investing all this capital into the construction of the stadium, only 4 World Cup matches actually took place at the Arena da Amazonia. This obviously meant almost no capital was generated to compensate for the cost of building the stadium. And after these 4 matches took place, it was rarely used. The local football clubs in Manaus couldn't fill out the entire stadium simply because the clubs weren't big enough. Sometimes the stadium does get used, like for a few rounds during the 2016 Olympic Games, but that's about it. Nowadays, the stadium rarely hosts any events, leaving the stadium to be completely useless. But the other mega projects on this list are far more useless. Let's go to number 6, the Xiangyun International Project. This project is located in China's Hebei province, in the city Xiangyun. The project consists of 2 parts, a small commercial area with shopping malls and skyscrapers, and a big residential area with apartments. The total cost of the project is about $3 billion. The location is pretty ideal since it's located right next to a train stop and very close to underground subway services. When the Xiangyun International Project was announced, 700 apartments were sold right away. But in 2014, the construction of the entire project was stopped because the real estate company in charge of the project was under investigation by the authorities. Charges of corruption were made against the main developer of the project, and these charges were found to be correct. So he got locked up in jail. Shortly after these events, the prices of all properties within the project saw a decline in price, and eventually, the company declared bankruptcy. Currently, thousands of people have not been able to move in because the project was confiscated by the government. What remains of the project is now an absolute ghost town. There is still traffic on the highway close by, but inside the buildings it feels completely abandoned. Xiangyun International Project is now more of a tourist attraction, especially for content creators who find the area stunning and want to share it with their audiences. No news has come out about the project resuming anytime soon, and it looks like it may never be finished. At least some people still visit the location, unlike the next item on our list. Number 5. Ciudad Real Central Airport. This airport was built because Spain is one of the top-tier travel locations for tourists, so they needed extra space to handle all the air traffic. The plan was for the Ciudad Real Central Airport to become the tourist hub of Spain and to make it a great alternative to the extremely crowded Madrid airport at that time. The new airport could handle around 2 million passengers a year, which is a pretty low number. That's why expansion plans were introduced to bump that up to 10 million passengers a year. In 2009, the airport became fully operational. However, only 3 years later, everything collapsed because the company running the project filed for bankruptcy. There are numerous issues this airport has to deal with, starting with location. The name was Central Airport, but the location wasn't really central at all. It's located over 125 miles away from Madrid. This is why many tourists avoided the brand new airport because they didn't feel like traveling for hours to get to their final destination. Not only the passengers but also airlines prefer to fly to the capital, Madrid. With both parties not interested in the airport whatsoever, it accumulated a $350 million debt by 2012. Following the debt, the airport was put up for auction a year later in 2013. In 2019, the airport was sold to the new owners. The new owners decided it was best to reinvent it to be a home for grounded planes. This new approach of becoming a parking lot for airplanes gave the airport a brand new purpose. However, this was all during the pandemic, so eventually all of the planes will be used again, thus making the airport useless. If you thought this project was useless, wait till you hear about number 4, Yucca Mountain Waste Repository. This next location is used as a storage facility for nuclear waste and other high-level radioactive waste. It was constructed to deal with a very sensitive issue that was known around the globe. If nuclear waste is not stored properly, it can be deadlier than anything humanity has ever experienced. This was a problem because most countries couldn't figure out where to store it properly. In the 1980s, the United States tried to find a permanent solution to this ever-growing nuclear waste issue. The Yucca mountain in Nevada was identified as the best location for this mega project. On paper, this seems like a perfect location, but the people of Nevada were furious. Their argument was that the location isn't suitable at all, because it's close to a nearby water source used by millions of Americans. Despite this setback, they resumed construction in 2002, but doing this was a big mistake since the opposition only grew stronger because of this. For them, the only reason this was happening in Nevada seemed to be its low population and a small political saying in the matter. By the time Barack Obama became president, the entire project was very political, and in 2010, the Obama administration stopped funding the waste repository project. Construction completely shut down, and the project became unworkable. 3 years later, a federal court ordered the project to be resumed, but there has been very little progress ever since. Right now, it's not part of the country's plans anymore, so construction may never continue again. The total cost of the project is over $17 billion. And because the project remains unused until this day, the Yucca Mountain Waste Repository is completely useless. But it can get far more useless. Let's look at number 3, the World Islands. This mega project consists of a lot of small artificial islands that are supposed to represent the world map located off the coast of Dubai. This may sound like a fun concept, but if you take a closer look at it, you can tell it's absolutely useless. The project has a total of 300 islands, and each island is named after every single country in the world. Each island has a different size, but on average it's about 3.5 acres to 10.4 acres. The entire project covers an area of around 3.7 by 5.6 miles, and it's surrounded by a breakwater island. However, this project was already doomed from the beginning because of the following reason. The construction of the mega project was done entirely by numerous private contractors, making it too ambitious. By 2021, only 9 of the 300 islands were ready for visitors and commercial use. But the problems only kick off here. The islands also don't have their own source of electricity, and the project to run cable under the world islands completely failed. So far, the cost of the world islands is a total of $14 billion. Because the islands aren't in use and don't really mean anything, this mega project is useless. Of course, 300 empty islands are useless, but what about a useless skyscraper? That's on number 2, the Ryugyong Hotel. This is the tallest unoccupied building around the globe, also known by its nickname, the Tower of Doom. It's located in North Korea, which is also a part of the reason why it's unoccupied. It's supposed to be a hotel, but North Korea doesn't really fancy hosting tourists. Getting into North Korea as a tourist can be a very difficult challenge, and many tourists don't even consider going there. The reason the 105-story hotel was built in the first place is because in the 1980s, North Korea was actually expected to host a lot of tourists. North Korea wanted to compete with its rival South Korea, who had just finished building the tallest hotel in the world elsewhere. That's why the country started plans to build a unique pyramid-shaped hotel in the capital, Pyongyang. At a height of 330 meters or 1,080 feet, the Ryugyong Hotel would beat the height of South Korea's tallest hotel at the time. However, soon after construction began, the problems started to pop up. The project was immediately hit with engineering problems, and after a lot of delays, the project finally hit its peak height in 1992. But there was one major issue. By the time this happened, the financial backer of the project, the Soviet Union, no longer existed. There was no more capital to fund the project, causing the project to be paused entirely. Back then, the Ryugyong Hotel was just a concrete structure with no windows whatsoever. Only the outer walls were standing. Construction of the hotel was halted for a total of 16 years until a company from Egypt took over. In 2012, this company installed a glass facade and LEDs to the outside of the building for an estimate of $180 million. But if you thought the issues would end here, you're wrong. North Korea was facing new political problems during this time, causing the entire project to be abandoned once again. The total estimated cost of the hotel is over $2 billion, which is around 5% of North Korea's total GDP. No official information is available about whether or not the mega project will ever be finished, although this seems very unlikely since North Korea isn't the wealthiest country. After many attempts to bring this project to life, it remains completely useless. Now, if you thought a useless 105-story building was bad, wait till you hear about the useless capital city. Number 1. Naypyidaw, Myanmar. Number 1 on this list is the capital city of Myanmar. This is a brand new capital completely built from scratch. In 2002, the government secretly started constructing this capital city. In November 2005, Myanmar's leaders announced the new capital to the public, but they kept the name a secret. The name Naypyidaw was revealed 4 months later, which means the king's residence. To this date, the government spent around $4 billion to build the city. The brand new capital city has everything to attract tourism. Over 100 luxury hotels, a 20-lane highway, museums, golf courses, and even a replica of a landmark that used to be part of the last capital city. However, one very important piece of the puzzle was missing: the residents. The new capital is home to less than 1 million people, and this includes a lot of people who were already living in the area before the city was even there. But why on earth does nobody want to live here? This is because of poor health facilities, lack of education, and lack of economic opportunities, and nobody wants to make the capital city their home. It is often referred to as the ghost town. Just look at this 20-lane highway, it's basically empty. You usually only see a single vehicle driving on the gigantic road. The capital has an airport that could handle 3.5 million travelers every year, but on a good day, maybe 10 people will actually use it. Besides the airport being empty, the hotels are empty, the malls are empty. Basically, everything you can imagine is peaceful and quiet. However, there is still a small chance the city will succeed. Myanmar's population is still growing, and it's growing pretty fast. Maybe in the future, the city will be seen as a home to many people, but for now, it remains completely useless. Now, if you thought this was a great story, did you know that there is a floating airport that costs billions of dollars? Click on the video to see how expensive it is.